Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. In today's episode, I am sharing with you a mega video full of spring and Easter decor DIY ideas. I am headed with my two daughters to Florida for my daughter's choir competition. I'm sharing lots of that over in my stories on Instagram, so make sure you're following over there. But I didn't want to leave you guys hanging without some inspiration for you this week, so here we go. There are so many fun ideas in here. I know you're going to love each of them. When you do see your favorite project, make sure you hit your thumbs up and let me know down in the comments. Let's go make some DIYs. I picked this piece up at Hobby Lobby a while back on clearance, and you can see that I paid just a few dollars for it. I got such a screaming deal on it, and I've been waiting to do such a fun project with it, and today's the day. I love how this turns out. Now I also have this piece from Dollar Tree here. We're going to use the back side of it. When you look at the front, you can see the raised dot trim all around it. That's going to act as like a 3D element to help pop that up off of our image. So we're going to take advantage of that. Now using my inkjet printer, I just printed this image out with these beautiful birds on here. I just love using birds in my decor, especially in springtime, but really I use them all year round. So I'm just cutting this out of some cardstock that I printed this image onto. Now you can kind of see that the wood is a little bit bigger than my image. I printed that image as big as my printer would allow, but this wood piece was just a little bit bigger. So I just used some antiquing wax around the edge to kind of mask that. Now I am going around the edge of my cardstock here with the antiquing wax also, so you don't see the stark whiteness of the paper. We want it to blend seamlessly into that antiquing wax on the wood. I'm using a generous amount of Mod Podge on here. We're just going to give this a nice even coat. You don't want it too thick, but you also just want to make sure you have enough coverage over your wood. And then you're going to let that dry completely. Set it aside for at least a half an hour and let that Mod Podge dry. Now I'm going to take my image and I'm going to center it on here. There was that little hole where in the piece of wood that had like where the twine, the hanger was on it. I just made sure to cover that up so we don't have that showing. And I'm just going to place some parchment paper over. Remember that Mod Podge is totally dry at this point, and I'm going to take my mini heat press and I'm just going to apply the heat evenly all over this image. I'd say maybe spend about at least a minute, maybe 2 minutes going over this. This is cardstock, so it's thick. You're going to want to make sure that heat goes all the way through that parchment paper and the cardstock to reactivate that Mod Podge to create a bond between the paper and your surface. I wanted to have this protected on the front. You can either do a spray clear coat, or I'm just putting a little bit more of the Mod Podge over this to go over the entire image just to give it a little bit of protection, and it also kind of gives it more aged, like an aged antiquing look. I wanted this just to kind of look like it has been around for a while, maybe a piece that grandma had made forever ago. And so I just wanted it to have those brush strokes of the Mod Podge in it. Now I'm trying to pick a piece of paper to go behind this. This is kind of, doesn't really show on camera, but it was like a navy buffalo check. It did bring out a little bit of the blue and the birds. I really like this lighter blue color here, really pretty. You guys are gonna have to tell me which one you like. Inevitably, I'll probably choose wrong, but I think all of these pieces look really good. I don't love this one as much. I did at first, but once I got it on here, I felt like it kind of, the color was off to me. So I end up eliminating that one right away. And then this last one here, I feel like the birds become the focal point rather than the paper behind it. So that's the one I end up going with. But again, you'll have to let me know which one you choose. You can kind of see how with each of the different pieces of paper, it really kind of changed the whole look of how the project would come together. So now, unfortunately, I thought this piece was like a picture frame, and so I thought the backing would come off much easier than it did. So I'm having to kind of pry this with my putty knife, which at this point I hadn't really thought about or realized how hard it would be to get that back in there again. It was a little difficult. So here's my paper. I thought I was just going to be able to put this paper on the back, fit it back in, and then kind of move on. But that wasn't the case. I end up having to get like a piece of cardboard from a calendar insert and gluing it to that. So that way it would stay. So you can kind of see that's what I'm doing right here. So I'm just using some of that Elmer's school glue stick to do this with, and then I just lay my paper down and smooth it out. Now, I don't even know how to explain how this paper was fitting in there before I added this piece of cardboard, but this cardboard made all of the difference. So it was definitely necessary. And I feel like even if it had been like a picture frame type of situation, I still probably would have had to have done that. Now, the problem was when I went to put the back on here, I'm realizing that all of the little like nails or studs or whatever, like I got my mallet out and I could not get this to attach back in. And I was afraid if I got anything out to hammer in, it would split the wood. So I end up just making the decision to glue this in. You guys, I know it doesn't look super pretty from the back, so I would never feel comfortable selling this the way that it is. So if it is something that you're wanting to do when you're reselling something, you're probably going to have to think of a different situation, or staple it in would be the only thing I could think of. But in essence, to just finish the project, I just put some hot glue all the way around the lip of that back and then slid the back in. So that way it would hot glue it. I even went around and did another bead of hot glue around the edge completely, just to make sure that it had some stability. It's going to hang on my wall or sit up against something like on my china hutch. So you're never going to see that on my home. But again, it's not something clean enough on the back that I would feel comfortable like selling it. So just in full disclosure there. Now I'm just going to do a bead of hot glue all the way around these little raised dots on here, and then we're going to turn this over and center it the best we can. I'm going to be so careful to not burn my fingers on that hot glue because you know hot glue starts to drip. So I was being very cautious. I just did not want to burn my fingers. And then again, I don't eyeball anything. I don't measure anything. I just kind of eyeball it, and I'm just looking for this center there, getting my birds as straight as I can, and then I'll just press that down. I really do love that background paper that just kind of fades into the background and makes those birds pop. Look at how beautiful this turns out. I love this piece. I think this is so pretty. It's going to be perfect in my home for spring. I know exactly where I'm going to put it. Again, I was a little disappointed with how the back of it turned out, with it not being like a picture frame situation. However, I'm embracing it. It's going to stay in my home. But I think that this is just absolutely beautiful to look at. Again, you're going to have to let me know which paper you liked the best, if you liked the one I went with, or which one you liked, or if you would do something completely different. But I do love how this piece turned out. I have these styrofoam eggs, and I thought it would be really fun to make some egg topiaries. Now I'm just showing you that there's all sorts of different sizes that you can come up with. This yellow one came from Dollar Tree. It had some beads all over it and glitter, so I just kind of sanded it off. My other ones came from the craft store, but anyway, you can get your hands on some different sizes of eggs. Will be great for this DIY. I want to make some egg topiaries. I thought this would be so fun. I made a moss egg in one of my last videos. You guys loved it, so this was just kind of taking it and doing something a little different. So each of these eggs is just getting a coat of sage green chalk paint. That is just so you don't see any of the styrofoam underneath the moss after we glue that onto each of these. It's just such a necessary step. Now this is just some reindeer moss. You can pick this up at Dollar Tree or any floral section of a craft store. I'm just going to cut mine into some little pieces. And as I was doing that, it was super, super dry, which happens sometimes. Reindeer moss has kind of a buoyancy to it, like kind of spongy feel. And sometimes if it's crisp, you just need to mist it a little bit with your mister bottle. You don't want to totally saturate it, but it's going to kind of alleviate that crunchiness and give you that nice bouncy feeling that the reindeer moss is supposed to have. After I do that, I'm just going to chop this up into such little teeny pieces and then just start gluing it on. This is a little bit time consuming, but it is such an easy project to do. It does use a little bit of hot glue, so just make sure you've got like a nice fresh pack of hot glue sticks when you're doing this. But you're just going to work in sections, putting some glue onto your egg and then just kind of bouncing it down into your reindeer moss. Just be really careful when using your hands that you're not going to burn them, because that hot glue can kind of seep through that reindeer moss. So just make sure when you go to kind of push things down with your hand, you've let it maybe sit for a minute or two, and that way you're not going to get the super hot glue. So So you can see just working in sections. I'll just fill in a little section and then kind of fill it in with the glue. And then I'll just bounce that down into, and it picks it right up. So you just want to continue this step with all of the eggs until they're completely covered in moss. Sometimes you may need to take a little bit of time and do a little bit of like trimming on your egg, like give it a little bit of a haircut. It starts to look kind of shaggy. And so I just take my scissors and just kind of working from the base along the shape of the egg, just kind of work my way up to the top. It just depends on how like organic you want these or how shaggy you want them. I'm just taking a couple of terracotta pots and just dry brushing some white paint to brighten them up. I like the way that looks. That kind of matches my decor, but whatever pots you had would work fine. Now I am just putting a dowel into the egg here. That's what I'm going to use. I did put some pool noodles or styrofoam, whatever you have, use that in the base of your pot. And then a dowel is what I'm using to kind of glue that down in and get that stuck down into that. Now you can see those little sticks I have in the center of my screen. That was a bunch of grapevine sticks that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to try and make these look like they are the trunks of like the little topiary, little branches. So hopefully it turns out really good. I actually like the way it ends up looking, but you could just use just a simple dowel painted or a stick from your yard or something. Make it as personable as you want to, or as like however matches your style. So you can see I did poke a hole with the dowel, and I'm just going to get a couple of sticks and then match them up. I wanted the straighter sticks kind of all lined up together so that way they weren't going like several different directions. You can see I'm just going to kind of stick those down in, and then I'll trim them off where I feel is a good spot to trim them. So on the next layer of egg that will go on, I'm just poking a little bit of a hole on it, making sure that those sticks will go in fairly easily. And then I'll use some hot glue to make sure that that egg will stay and it's not going to go anywhere or anything like that. I'm making two topiaries, one with 3 layers to it, one with 2 layers. So I'm just going to copy the same process on each of my topiaries on each layer. Obviously, the top layer on each topiary is not going to have anything coming out of the top of it. So you just need to make sure that you're putting your sticks into the bottom of it as you place it on. One thing you can do is place a little bit of Spanish moss. I do have my eggs fit securely onto the pot so they're not raised up, but you could do that. You just want to make sure you're not going to be able to see, especially where my pool noodles are bright blue. I don't want to see those, so that's one reason I covered them in the Spanish moss. Now here's where I'm securing my base egg to the terracotta pot. But again, if there was any like openings or gaps or anything, I would not want to see that blue pool noodle. I do on these bigger styrofoam eggs, I had a barbecue skewer that goes all the way through, and then I placed my sticks around the barbecue skewer just to give it a little bit of extra stability. With the smaller eggs on the 3-tiered topiary, it's not as big of an issue because the eggs aren't that heavy, but these styrofoam eggs, the bigger they can be, or the bigger they are, they can be a little bit, you could lean to one side or the other with the weight. And so I felt like it needed that barbecue skewer in the middle. Now I'm using my heat tool just to clean up any hot glue webs, but look at how cute these look. You guys, these are so beautiful. And I've seen these in stores for like $50 and up. I mean, they're just, it cost me just a couple of dollars and a little bit of time. It was such a fun project, and I think these are a beautiful addition to your decor. I love a good topiary in my decor, and to have them kind of be more for spring and Easter, I think these are absolutely perfect. What do you think? Would you guys try to make these? So I have these pieces of cardboard. They just came in some like leftover cardboard that I had for Christmas, but you can see it's this thick type of cardboard. I'm sure maybe you've gotten some packaging with these in it, but I saw these carrots on Pinterest and I thought this would be so fun to make these out of this thick cardboard. And so we're just going to trace kind of a carrot shape on here. Hopefully you can follow me on this. I know it's not, it's just kind of like a triangle shape, but I didn't do a point at the end because I want to be able to glue my yarn onto it. And I'm just using a really heavy duty box cutter to cut this shape out. So you could probably do this with just normal cardboard. It would maybe be a little bit thinner, or glue a few pieces together if you don't have a big piece like this. Now here's my first piece, and as I looked at this, I saw, oh my gosh, there's a second little triangle that's a little bit smaller. And so I do trim this one down just a little bit because I don't like how fat it is kind of on that end there. I felt like it was a little wide there. And so I'm kind of just tapering it down a little bit, less pizza slice and more carrot shape. So apparently that's what I decided to go with right there. I get that off, and then I cut this piece off. I'm just using some scissors to show you. I could use scissors. It just doesn't work as great as the cardboard, the box cutter. But I have these two shapes there, and so I've got these two different color of orange yarns. This is that really thick, like chenille type yarn. And so we're going to use this to make these carrots. So I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue right on the tip there. And then I'm going to just kind of lay my yarn down. I thought this bigger one I'm going to do with this lighter color of yarn. And I'm just pressing it down with my barbecue skewer to hold it there, whatever you want, just so you don't burn your hand. And let that dry so that way we can start to wrap this. This is such an easy project, you guys. This would be so fun if you had a lot of cardboard that you wanted to just make some really fun, easy gifts out of, or just something springtime decor, maybe to sell. You got a craft show coming. This is like the perfect idea. So I wrap it like 3 or 4 times, and then I'm just going to do a little line of glue. So this is just every few wraps that you do, it's going to be glued down so it's secure and it's not going to come undone. And so I glued the one side, so now I've done a wrap, and so I'll come back and glue this other side, wrap it 3 or 4 times, and then I'll do that same process with the glue all the way up to the base of this carrot. Do you guys like decorating with carrots for springtime? I love that pop of orange in my springtime decor. I just feel like the more color, the happier, the more cheery it is. And it's just so fun to have these little carrots, almost like pumpkins are at fall time. You'll have to leave me the carrot emoji down in the comments if you guys like decorating with carrots, because I think they're so fun and just a perfect way to use that pop of orange in your decor. And I'm not wrapping this super tight, just enough that it's snug against the cardboard. Now I'm up at the top here, so I'm just trying to decide where I want to glue my last little rung there. So I'm just going to put a line of glue here, and then I will hold that yarn down to let it dry, so that way I can kind of move on. I'll bring that around and then I'll place it there, and then that's just going to sit there until that glue completely dries. And then I'll do that same thing on the back side, because I want to make sure that it's nice and secure at the top. Now I'm not cutting my yarn yet because we need to finish off the top, but we're going to put some greenery on there first. So I'm just kind of pushing that down into the glue to make sure it's nice and secure. And you can kind of see this is where I'm planning on stopping there. So that's where I'm going to glue my greenery, and then I kind of leave a lot of extra there. So I'm going to move on and wrap my other one because I'll do the greenery on both of them at the same time. So I follow the exact same process with this one. It's just going to take a little bit less since it's a smaller carrot. And I thought it was kind of fun to have the more lighter neutral orange as the bigger carrot, and then the smaller one be the more saturated orange. This would be a fun project to do with like some friends one night, or even like kids or grandkids, because I think that they could easily handle this. If you're doing kids, you even could try to do like the white Elmer school glue, just a little bit more dry time on that, but I think that would be a fun project for them to be able to do, and I think that would hold enough on these carrots as well.
So same process on this carrot all the way up to the base there, up to the top or the base, I don't know, up to the wider part of the carrot. And then I'm just going to glue that off. Now I found this at Dollar Tree and I thought this looked like a lot of fun to do for the greenery on the carrots. No, it's not actually what 100% the greenery looks like, but it's very carrot-esque. And so I just snip off a few little pieces. I get asked a lot about my little snippers here. I just got these at Lowe's. They're the Cobalt brand and they have that joint in the middle. And so they're really easy on your hands to do to cut wire with. So I'll see if I can link some down in my description box, but I love them. I highly recommend some in your crafting toolkit. Now I'm taking my barbecue skewer and I'm just poking that down into the cardboard. It was a little tough, but not enough that I think you could probably do that. But you could also use some scissors, which might work a little easier. Just be really careful since you're working with cardboard. And I'm just making sure that that glue fits down in there and kind of how I like the carrot wrapping up around the greenery there. Once I decide that I totally do like it, then I'm just going to kind of fill that hole with the hot glue. And so that's what's going to adhere our greenery in there. So you can see I'm just going to stick my glue gun in there, put a bunch of hot glue down in there, and then I will go ahead and place the greenery. In the small carrot, I do 2 sprigs of greenery, and then in the larger carrot, I end up doing 3 since it's a little bit wider. I feel like naturally it would have some more greenery, so. And then to finish this off, I'm just putting a line of glue or a bead of glue along the very top part of that thick part of the cardboard, and I will just wrap that yarn right around so it stays in that. And that's what's going to finish this off. You just want to make sure that you can't see any of your cardboard. And then on the back side here, I'm just going to make sure that it's glued down. You can put some glue right in between your little sections there and just press them together so that way they adhere. I just think this looks so cute. I mean, this is coming together so dang cute, you guys. Now we do the exact same thing with the larger size. Like I said, the only difference is I put 3 sprigs of greenery in there instead of the 2. And this is where I decide to do that. I'm just kind of fitting them in, you know, dry fit it first. See what, if you like it, if you want to change the greenery on each of them. I mean, whatever you want to do. But look at how cute. Oh my gosh, you guys, these are going to be so cute together. So fill this in with some hot glue and then we're just going to stick the greenery in. And then again, just put that glue on the top part of the cardboard there and you're going to wrap that yarn around so you don't see any of the cardboard. And just tuck your end piece in so you don't see that it's the end. To finish this off, I'm taking some drop cloth. You guys, I paid like $15, maybe $12 to $15 for this piece of drop cloth, and I have used it now for a year and a half. There is so much of this. Invest in a piece of drop cloth. It's so fun to do different DIYs with it. But I'm just tearing off a strip of this as kind of a ribbon to tie these two together. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with these, so you could dress these up in several different ways, but I kind of liked the simplicity of just having this little drop cloth bow on them. They sit on their sides so well together since I did use that thicker cardboard, and so it's the perfect little shelf sitter the way that it is. Look at how cute these are together. Can you just imagine having a cute little vignette with some bunnies and some greenery and then this pop of orange carrots there, maybe even some little tulips. I just think they're so cute and they were so easy to make. And I love that thick yarn that's on there. I feel like that really is what makes this project, and I just think it's so fun. You'll have to let me know if you guys like this project because I think it turned out super, super cute. I'm using one of these little bunnies from Dollar Tree. They've had these forms the last several years, and I have a couple of them in my stash, but I've actually never used one to craft with. So this is a first for me. I am just filling the little holes at the top where the hanger went with some hot glue. I'll sand that off. Some spackling would work just fine. Since I'm not hanging this, I just don't need those holes. Now I'm going to give this a nice coat of fresh white paint to brighten it up a bit. only to go back over it with some antiquing wax in just a second to dirty it up. You'll see what I mean. So I'm putting a little bit of antiquing wax because this has a wood grain texture. I thought I would put this on and then dry brush the white back on it to brighten it up, but it ended up looking very much like a wood tone, which I actually kind of liked. So paint it whatever color you would like, I guess is the message here. But you can see here how I'm just going over with a little bit of white paint, and it will hit all of those raised areas, and where it mixes with that antiquing wax, it does just create this beautiful natural wood tone color. And since not all bunnies are white, I feel like it works. Now you can see I kind of got a little bit heavy-handed in that one area right down the middle there. So to fix that, I'm just putting a little bit of antiquing wax on there and blending it in, and I think it looks great. Now this is a 2-pack of eggs, also from Dollar Tree here. I'm going to do the same thing to cover up the hole in this, just a little bit of hot glue. We're going to have our little bunny kind of hold this egg here. And so I'm just going to take that hole away, and then I'm going to give this a nice fresh coat of white paint as well. Now this is some Mod Podge here. I'm just going to put a thin layer of this. I have a darling napkin that I'm going to use over this, so I'm going to put on my Mod Podge and let that dry completely. Now I picked up this set of napkins from Home Goods. However, I mean, your places to get napkins, list your favorite place down in the description below, but napkins are sold everywhere, so find your favorite napkin. This just had a really cute design on here, very vintage. I love the little chicks on it. It does say Happy Easter, but I feel like you could use this for Easter and springtime together. I'm just going to separate the layers of the napkin because you just want one layer. And then using a little bit of water on a paintbrush, I will go around the design here, and using a pencil eraser. This is my favorite hack when it comes to working with napkins now. Use a pencil eraser. It gets into those little detailed areas that you want to get, and it tears the napkin without ripping too much. It's perfect. Try it next time. You'll thank me later. Now I'm just going to center this design on our little egg here, and you can see this napkin has 3 designs left that I can use from that one napkin. Now remember, our Mod Podge is dry. I let that dry completely. This is a technique that I am new to and I am loving it. So I will just place some parchment paper over this, and then taking my little teeny heat press, an iron would work fine as well. But I love this little heat press. They're about $25 on Amazon. I'll leave a link in my description box. I use mine all the time. But just going over the design, this just reactivates that Mod Podge, so that way it's bonding the napkin to your surface. Now there was a little overhang from my napkin, so in a slow downward motion, I will just sand that off with my fingernail file. I'm distressing the edge a little bit here. I end up doing something else to it, so this is totally optional. Just kind of do what you like and what looks good to you. You can see I even tore my napkin, but I just went over it with that heat press, and it bonded it right back. But again, I just go around this thinking I wanted kind of a rustic look, but I'll show you what I do in just a moment instead of this. This is a little bit of white paint left in my brush. I'm brushing over that napkin. It's going to give it kind of an aged, worn look. Totally optional. I like that. So it just depends if that's something you want to do. Now, I have this script stamp that came from Hobby Lobby. A lot of you might have some from other brands. Totally optional here. I thought this was just something I wanted to try to give the bunny texture. I love how it turns out, but I go in all different directions with my script. Some of it's darker, some of it's fading. I'm not worried about being perfect here. We're just giving the bunny some texture. I'm placing that egg down kind of where it would go, so I can kind of see where I would maybe want to add some more script. Go as heavy-handed, as light-handed, or not at all with this. It's just as up to you. Since I'm working fairly quick while I'm doing this project, I normally would let this sit overnight, but I do use my heat tool to dry that ink because I do want to kind of dry brush over it, make it look a little bit more faded. So I don't want the ink to run. So depending on the type of ink you have or how long you set it, you may need to do that or skip that step. And you don't even have to do this. I just wanted it to look like this bunny has been sitting for years and looks a little faded. Now here's what I was talking about with the edge of the egg. I'm taking some Rub and Buff, a little bit of antique gold, and I'm just going around the edge. This napkin has a little bit of gold foil on it, and this helps tie that in. And I actually really love the look. It's kind of giving French country vibes here. And so I thought the gold really added a nice touch to it. So I do like that. You could use antiquing wax too if you wanted. Now to glue our egg onto the bunny, I am putting a couple of the tumbling tower blocks on the back to pop it out so it looks a little bit more 3D. And then just using some hot glue, I'm going to set this up and make sure it's exactly where I want it. Now I want some Spanish moss coming around this, almost like a little nest. I love the texture that this adds. I feel like this also kind of brings that French country vibe into it. So I tuck a little bit of hot glue behind the egg, and then I start out with a pencil, but I end up realizing that a craft stick is actually much more useful when it comes to doing this here. So you can see I just kind of shove some hot glue up underneath the egg, and then I will use that craft stick here to slide that up. So therefore it's popping out. It has that 3D element and it adds a little bit more texture to it. It doesn't take a whole lot of Spanish moss when you're doing this, just a little bit, enough to come out. And again, this is something that's totally optional. I love the way that this looks on here in springtime. Spring and fall decorations, I love to use Spanish moss with. I'm not really sure why, but it just is my jam. So again, if it's not yours, you could do some reindeer moss, would look really cute, or just leave it blank. We want to give this a little bit of a trim here, so I'm just going around any of the really long pieces that are really kind of squirrely and just kind of way out there. I trim those back, and then I also will trim around the shape of the egg here so nothing is totally like obstructing the design on that egg. Now this is a sign from Dollar Tree. I wanted this to have a base so it would sit up. And so this is kind of a fun way to do this here. Just a circular piece of wood or even a square piece of wood would work fine. Something you just want to use as your base. I'm just showing you I have this Dollar Tree sign here, so I'm using it. Now I remove all of the little florals, the ribbon, and also the hanging tag from it. And then I need to take off that, it's like a stick, it's not a sticker, but like that thing that says welcome on it that makes it look like a log. I'm just like a slice of wood. I'm just going to go ahead and spray it with some water, use my emery board to kind of rough up that paper so the water will saturate in. And this took about 5 to 10 minutes, so a little bit tedious, but you just kind of keep working with it. You're going to spritz it, scrape it, sand it, and eventually it will melt that adhesive and it will all come off. I did soften the edges by sanding them down a little bit, and this part my phone stopped recording, so I'm just going to walk you through this. I took 3 of these little cubes and some hot glue, and I glued them each to the base of the bunny, the back of the bunny, and then to the sign to have it as your base. And then I also put a little bit of lamb's ear, just glued some pieces in to kind of tie it in with that base. Totally optional. You could leave it blank if you wanted. I even tucked a little bow in there. I thought it was cute. Make it your own and have fun with it. But I think this turns out darling. I think this is perfect for spring and Easter. If you're one of those that kind of likes to put your decorations up once for the season and then be done, I think this is such a fun piece here. What do you guys think of this? I would love to know your thoughts on it.
If you watched my Easter Dollar Tree haul, you'll know that I picked up a couple of these bunnies, and I really wanted to make this over into a primitive looking bunny to have a really kind of aged look. And I've never really done a whole lot of the primitive look, so it was kind of new to me. And I was actually watching Lisa from Our Shabby Cottage, and she did one of these last year, and she had the brilliant idea to use this distressing ink on the bunny, especially this brown. There's a brown bunny and a white bunny, and she used it on this brown bunny, and I thought that's genius because it really does age this bunny. Now, if you're not familiar with the primitive look, it is a very aged, old, and like dirty kind of look. So it really does look like this is hundreds of years old is what you're going for. And I know that's not everybody's style, but I really do love the primitive look. I just don't have a lot of it, but I thought it would be really fun to kind of test the waters here. Hopefully I do a good job and you guys think it looks good in the end, but I really this was a lot of fun. I mean, even my daughter came down and watched while I was doing this and was like, this is so cute. It's like, she loved it. So, and she's like 15, so she thought it was pretty cool. So anyways, I'm going over with that distressing ink to kind of age this bunny and have it look very old. Now, I know some people have used like Mod Podge and cinnamon even to get that dirty look. You can tea dye like the white bunny or coffee dye or something. So however you want to age it up, but this distressing ink, if you have that, worked really well. Now I'm just taking some scrap fabric that I have and I'm going to make a little apron for our little bunny, and I'm just going to fray the edges of the apron there of all this fabric here so it just looks like ratted and tattered. And then I cut a long strip here. This is going to be like the straps of the apron. And so you can kind of see down in there, I think I scooted up here in a second for you guys to see this a little bit better, but this is just going to be, you know, like the front of the apron, and those ties go over the shoulder and then tie in the back. So I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue, and that's just going to place those straps down here. Now, you guys, I have a jar of buttons, of all sorts of different buttons, but do you think that I could find that jar? I mean, the primitive look uses like a lot of buttons and a lot of like age safety pins or things. I mean, there's a lot of fun little elements to do with it, but I could not find my buttons to save my life. So I scrounged up what buttons I could find. So they may not be as perfect as if I find my jar of buttons somewhere. Apparently I need to be on the lookout for some more buttons to add. Then I may change these out, but you'll have to let me know what you think of what I end up using here. The apron, when I put on our cute little bunny here, was a little bit long. So I just cut that off to about where I wanted it to fall. And then I will just go back in here and just make sure that I make that look a little shabby there by peeling out the little strings there. Now this is just a little pocket shape that I cut out of some other scrap fabric here. It kind of matched. It had like little polka dots on it. And I'm just going to hot glue this on to have a little pocket there, because we're going to stuff a little something inside of that here in just a moment. So just using my hot glue, I turn this over and place the pocket. But what I do is I end up sticking my fingers in. You'll kind of see here, I push the edges down, but I want to make sure there's enough room for anything that we might want to stuff in the pocket. So I just stick my fingers in and kind of like balloon it out a little bit. So that way you make sure that you can fit anything in there that you might want to. So now I'm going in and putting a couple of buttons on where like a natural button would go with that apron. Like maybe that's how that strap is affixed to this. And so I just go on either side and place those little buttons. Again, if I find my jar of buttons, I may go in and replace. These were pretty basic buttons that I found, but it was better than nothing. But I also thought it would be really cute to go over the eyes with the buttons as well. That way it kind of looks a little bit more like a traditional, what you would see in the primitive look. And then to make sure that I get these on okay, I'm using my little needle nose pliers there. That just helps me go in and get the precision that I want, rather than like, I mean, if I was to do this with my fingers, I'd probably drop the button and mess it up or something. So that's why I end up using my pliers there, which actually worked really well to get these on. So you can see I just put that glue down. I'm kind of letting it dry a little bit so it's not going to go seeping out everywhere when you place that down. And then with that needle nose, set of needle nose pliers, you can just place that button right down there. And I just thought that gave her just a cute little look. Now, since I want to make her really kind of girly, I thought I'll do a little bow or something here. So this is just another fabric that's kind of has the same green tones to it, but it's just a striped fabric here. But I just am using my little X-OXO knife here to kind of peel out some of those threads, and then I will just pull down on the threads too, and that's how I kind of fray the edges of it. But I just want to make all of the ribbon nice and frayed. And actually, when I get this done, you'll see here, I decided I want to age this a little bit too. So I'm just running that ink just over this ribbon front and back. And instead of tying a bow, what I end up doing is I just tie a singular knot into it. And I thought that was really cute because rather than have it be like a traditional bow, it might actually be just tied in a knot, and that might have been what worked when they were making, a primitive doll or something like this. And so I'm just going to take this and glue this just right next to one of the ears there, so it's kind of off-centered, and then the little tails of that bow. And if you want to trim them at all or anything, do that, but just make sure if you do that you just fray those edges so you don't have any like new edges on it. So one thing I'm going to do now, and I noticed this on a lot of inspiration pieces that I looked up, is some of the bunnies would have little whiskers. And I thought, well, would I sew them on? How would I get them? So on this particular bunny, that nose just lifts up. There's a little bit of glue from Dollar Tree that's holding it down. But I just lifted it up, and then I took the thinnest twine that I could find, that I had even some string or some embroidery thread or something. I just took 3 pieces of it, and I just put those in the glue and then pushed the nose back over the top of it to give her some cute little bunny whiskers there. I don't know, a lot of the pieces that when I looked at primitive bunnies had those, and I thought it really added a fun little look to it. Now I'm just taking a little bit of Dollar Tree greenery here, and I thought, well, this is going to be really cute. Let's just stick some of this little lavender sticking out of her pocket. And then it looked a little bare just to have the one piece there. So I'm just taking off the little greenery that was behind it, and I'll stuff that down there. But how cute would it be if you had like a cute little heart tucked in there, or a little chick or something? There's so many cute things that you could do, but even just the flowers were super fun. Now I wanted to put a little rusty but safety pin on here. However, I tried to soak some in vinegar to get that rusty look, but safety pins must take a lot longer than the galvanized metal that I've done before, because they were like as shiny as could be when I pulled them out. So I'm just taking some burnt umber from Apple Barrel, and I'm just getting this, pouncing it on here. It took 2 or 3 coats. You just want to make sure to let it dry completely in between each coat, because it will kind of rub off. But even some Mod Podge and some cinnamon would do the trick. And if I had had some cinnamon, that's probably what I would have done. Either way, it still looks like a little rusty aged paper. I keep wanting to say paper clip, but it's a safety pin clearly. But I do go in. There was just a little bit of a part of the paint that kind of rubbed off there. So I just went in and touched that up with my brush. But I think she looks so cute. Do you guys think I hit that primitive look, or are you thinking that you absolutely hate it? Let me know down in the comments. I just think that she turned out so fun and cute. And my daughter was there with me the whole time making it, and she thought it was so cute. And that makes it worth it right there, right? That when you do something and your kids are like, oh my gosh, she turned out so cute, and she thought it was so fun. So we need to name her, guys. So I love it when you guys come up with your fun names. So leave me a name for her down in the comments. But I just think she turned out so dang cute. For this project, I'm doing a little bit of a thrift flip. I had this terracotta pot that I picked up. You can tell it had something in it before. It's got styrofoam in it, and I'm just going to level off the styrofoam. Now, if you're going to do this, you can do this with any kind of pot. You could use any kind of container, bowl, anything like that. I'm going to make a little bird cage vignette here. So I'm just taking some wire. This is just fencing wire that we have left over from our farm, and I'm kind of just measuring it right here, eyeballing how big I want it. I will measure it for you in just a second, but I'm just kind of seeing where I kind of want to cut this off. So I'm just going to use my wire cutters. I love these wire cutters. They are jointed in the middle, so they cut really easy. So if you don't have a lot of strength in your hand, it's so easy on them. So after I get my one piece cut here, I'm just showing you here, I think this ends up being about 16 inches that I end up cutting for the height that I wanted. So just keep that in mind here, but you just kind of eyeball kind of how high you want your little bird cage to go. But I'm going to cut 3 wires the same length. You can add more wires if you would like, but I wanted this to really kind of be open. I wanted it to give the concept of a bird cage, but just kind of have it be just kind of whimsical and fun. So now You can see here, I'm just going to line these up. Instead of measuring the rest of them, I just kind of line them up to the first piece that I cut. You don't have to be super exact with this either, because you're going to be pushing it into the styrofoam, so you can kind of adjust the height as you need. So to get the curve that I want, I'm just going to wrap this around the edge of my pot here. This is just helping get a nice like oval arch shape to the top there. And I'm just going to do that to all 3 pieces. So now that I have them all bent, I'm just going to kind of slip them each into the styrofoam. You can add some glue if you feel like you need to have a little bit of a stronger bond. I felt like the styrofoam was holding onto these pretty well. This is not something that's going to go outside or anything, so I felt like that it was really a good hold there. And then if I wanted to transform this into another DIY or use the pot for something after I was done with this particular decor piece, it would be easy to disassemble. So I'm just going to crisscross each of these wires when you put them in. So space them out accordingly with however many you have. So that way there kind of is an even space between them. Now you can use floral foam to do this. You can use some type of styrofoam. You could even put like some tinfoil balled up in there that you could attach these to. Just something that's going to hold these wires securely in place. So now I'm going to put some moss to cover up all of that styrofoam that's there. And so I'm just using a whole bunch of hot glue kind of around the pot there. So that way all of this moss will stick to it. Now this is just some floral moss that I got, but you could use Spanish moss. You could use whatever kind of moss that you wanted to. There's a lot of fun different types down your floral aisle at the craft store. So have a look and see kind of how you want to go, what direction. I just love this green floral moss. It is very messy, as you can see on my table there, but once you get it glued down, you're pretty good with it not shedding a whole bunch. Now I'm just using a little bit of twine to tie the wires together at the top. Sometimes bird cages will have like, a type of finial or something at the top. I didn't really want to glue anything on it because I didn't want it to look super like unnatural or just kind of like it didn't belong. I didn't have anything really. So I thought I would just tie off a few knots on the top with the twine and cut it down just to kind of hold it for stability. Now I wanted to use a little bird's nest in here. So I have a couple different types of bird nests, and I really didn't love this one that I have in there right now. I liked the color of the eggs, but the nest was just a little small for what I wanted in there, and the textures just didn't, in my mind, jive as well. So I thought, well, I really like the eggs, but I like this bigger bird's nest, so I end up taking the eggs out of the little bird's nest to put in there. I wanted this to look like maybe you had created or had a cute little plant that had this little like metal arch or something over it that you'd left out in your yard, and a bird had come and decided to make it its home and put a bird's nest in there. That was kind of the feeling I was going for. Just really French country, outdoor garden, pottery, springtime feel. So hopefully that's what I convey with this DIY. So I'm just taking those eggs and I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue to glue them into this little nest. When I put the glue on my second egg, I did drop it on that other egg. So they're kind of stacked, not exactly how I wanted, but again, it's DIY. You just kind of go with it. Now to make sure that nest is nice and secure, I just took another little piece of wire, maybe about 4 inches, and just kind of hooked it at the top. And so I just placed that down into the styrofoam to help that nest stay in place. You can use a little bit of hot glue. Again, if I decide at some point I want to take this apart, I thought it would be kind of nice if I decided I wanted a different nest in there or something. The little hook from the wire works really good. So this is just some Dollar Tree greenery here with these little white flowers on here that I picked up. And I thought that would bring a little floral touch. Like, again, this plant is kind of reviving, coming out in the springtime, and the bird has just decided to make it its home. So I just use a little bit of hot glue and I put 3 little pieces of that in around the nest here. Like it's just kind of spilling out from underneath the nest. This is kind of a view of what it looks like so far. I'm absolutely loving it. My pot had already had like a white glaze or paint on it already. And so I kind of wanted to rough it up. If this is something that's truly been sitting out on your porch or in your garden for months on end or all winter long, I wanted it to look a little bit more aged. So again, just working with what I had picked up from the thrift store, I just got a little antiquing wax and kind of just lightly went around this to kind of dull down the brightness of the white. But of course, with your pot, you could do whatever you wanted to. I mean, how cute would a little teacup be to do this in? Oh my gosh, I might have to try that now that I say that. But I'm just also putting that antiquing wax on the little knot on there to age it up a bit. Look at how cute this is. This is so, you guys, this is so what my house is. I love this kind of decor. I'm so excited to use this piece here. I think this is so fun and just so whimsical and perfect for spring. I have to know if you're going to try a version of this because I think this is so cute. I love it. I can't wait to put this in my decor and get all of my spring stuff put up. This is just going to be such a darling shelf sitter piece. This is a very cute frame from Target's Dollar Spot. However, if you look closely at it, the paint job on this is absolutely atrocious. It's very sloppy. It's very it's just not very good at all. So I feel like if you pick up this frame, you're going to want to get it a paint job. Whether or not you do checkerboard like it is or a solid color like I do, I feel like it needs a little bit of work. Very cute concept though. Now I'm using a sage color of chalk paint here. You can see how lightly this is going on. It is because the surface of this is very slippery. So I'm letting this scratch coat or base layer of paint dry. And then I'm going to be able to go in and get much better coverage with my second coat. So you can see here when I start to put this on, the coverage that you almost immediately get. I think I did one more coat after this. You just want to make sure it's completely covered, but that first layer is just going to be a very thin, just to kind of add some texture to it so it gives something else for the paint to grip onto. So I'm just going to dry this completely with my heat tool here. Now I love this color of green for spring this year. I just think it fits so well with that fresh feel. But when it dries, it is a little bit dark, but I wanted to kind of brighten this up a little bit. So I'm just using some white wax, and I believe this is Folk Arts white wax that I have here. Now I'm just putting this on with a chip brush here. And then it's once you let this or get this completely covered, you just go back in with a wet paper towel or a baby wipe and you'll wipe this back. And you'll see that it leaves that nice white wax in all of the little crevices or the textured areas. I personally felt like when I wiped it back a little too much for my taste. So I went back in with just what was left on my brush and just kind of swirled my brush around to brighten it up even more. Totally a matter of personal preference, how little or much you do this. Now, isn't this napkin absolutely beautiful? I picked this up at Home Goods this year, so you may be able to find it. And I'm just going to separate the layers from this. And in one napkin, you get 6 bunnies for DIYs. I mean, that's incredible. Now, when I took that layer off, I decided to check. I just licked my fingers, kind of pushed down in the corner to see if there was a third layer. A lot of times in the napkins I get from Home Goods, there are 3 layers. If it comes from Dollar Tree or Walmart, most of the time there's just 2 layers, so just double check. Now on the back surface of my frame, I'm just painting this white so I can decoupage my bunny directly onto this. If you want to put it on a piece of cardboard or something to be able to switch this out in your frame, I recommend doing that. I personally will probably just pack this away with my Easter stuff. It's just going to become an Easter decoration. I felt like if I wanted to do something else in the future, I could just put it on a piece of cardboard if I wanted. Now I put a base layer of Mod Podge down on my surface after my paint dried. I let that dry completely before placing the bunny down on here. And as you can see, it's important for you to use your frame to kind of get a reference point for how high or low or to left or right you want to move your bunny. You don't want to cut any of this detail off. This is just a piece of parchment paper I'm placing over my image, and I'll use my heat press to go over. This will reactivate that Mod Podge and it will adhere that napkin directly to the surface, and it's such a fun process to do. To get the excess napkin off, I'm just running a fingernail file over this, just in a downward motion. This is going to sand off all of the edges here of your napkin and give you that nice crisp finish. It honestly looks like that bunny was printed right onto this. I think this turns out so beautiful. I love this. It's perfect to tuck into your Easter decor. Now, if you don't want to do the Mod Podge portion of this, maybe you have a darling pictures of some kids or grandkids in some Easter clothes or something, your Easter egg hunt that you want to place in this. Maybe you've got a postcard or a different printable. There's so many different endless possibilities. But when you see these frames for so inexpensive, it's so nice to pick them up, do a little makeover on them, and you've got a beautiful piece for your decor. What do you guys think of this one?
I recently did a craft night for the local school district, and I just wanted to share this project with you that I made. This was kind of what the night looked like. It was so fun. These are all the products that I used. We made a wonky pot wreath, which I have made one in the past, but I thought I would show you this kind of updated version. It's a little bit of a different way that I made it, and I love how it turns out. So I'm just starting with a grapevine wreath, and then you just need some type of garland. And then this is called floral bind wire. I love this stuff. It's really bendy and it's coated, and it really just works so well, especially if you love decorating for different holidays. Think about Christmas time, putting your garland up your banister. This helps it stay so well. So I'm just going to snip a couple of pieces down, maybe like 6 inches or so that way I can get my garland placed on my grapevine wreath. So I'm just going to cut 4 pieces. You can do as many as you want, but 4 is sufficient. I'm just looking at where I want to kind of start here. To be totally honest with you, once you finish your wreath, your top and bottom area may change just based on how you put your pots on. So don't get too attached to which is the top and the bottom. But if you really like your wreath as a certain shape or something like that, then you just want to be conscientious of that. Now I'm slipping my garland under some pieces of the grapevine wreath. This is not actually necessary, so don't feel like you have to do this step. Just as an added layer if you're going to have it outside blowing in the wind. But honestly, that floral bind wire is going to attach it, and you're not going to have any problem with this blowing off. Now you can use any type of greenery on here. I loved this thin, small bit of eucalyptus here. I felt like I loved to see that grapevine wreath in the background. So that's kind of up to you what you decide to use. Now you can see I'm just going to feed my floral bind wire through a couple strands of the grapevine wreath. And then I'm just going to tie it like a twist tie. So that way it adheres your garland directly to the wreath. And you're going to work in a north, south, east, west pattern, kind of like a cross pattern. So that way you're going to contact the top and the bottom and both of the sides of the garland to your wreath. Now, once you do this, you have these tails that are kind of left from your twist tie, so to speak. And so what you're going to want to do is make those blend in. And what I do is I'm just taking a barbecue skewer and I'm just going to curlicue. And I apologize, I'll show you another one in just a moment. I did not realize these leaves were right in the way. But you're just going to spin them up on your barbecue skewer. And this is going to make them have that curlicue grapevine look. So it blends right in. So here I'll show you again on this one here. So you're just going to wrap that around, just kind of roll up your barbecue skewer. And it makes the cutest little curlicue for you. It's the perfect size that matches all of those natural ones that are on the grapevine wreath. And trust me, once all of your florals and everything are on here, they blend right in, even though they're a little bit of a lighter color. So I think this is looking really good. So now we're going to move on to doing our pots. Now the amount of pots that you use will kind of depend on the size of wreath you have. This is a 14-inch wreath and I'm doing 5 pots going around it. So I'm kind of just showing you that I want to do these in what I call a wonky pattern, which just means that they all face different directions, up, down, inward, outward. You just kind of want to change it up. Now I'm going to cut my pieces of floral bind wire and we're going to feed them through that hole in the bottom of the cup. Or not the cup, but the pot. But you just want to know that you're cutting your pieces of wire probably about 1 foot long. Just make sure it's long enough that it's going to reach all the way around your wreath. And so I just wrap that around, and then just in that same style that we did with the garland, we're just going to do this in like a twist tie motion and twist this 3 or 4 really good times. Now, since the pot is a little bit heavier, I'm going to take this little tail of my bind wire and I'm going to feed that through. This is where a barbecue skewer comes in handy again, because sometimes you can't reach your fingers in between all those little tightly woven strands. So it just helps pop that wire through. And I'm going to twist it again here. So you can see I have a double protection on this. Now this is the back of your wreath. You can just tuck those tails down and call it good. If you would like to curly cue them like I am doing here, totally up to you. It's an unnecessary step unless you really want the back of it to blend in as well. And that is so sturdy. It is not going anywhere. Now you could do a second wire if you really wanted to. Maybe if you live in a really windy area or this was going to get a lot of traffic or something by it that you wanted to make sure. But I think one is totally sufficient. And I'm just going to show you a second one here. You can see I'm facing the pot in a completely different direction. And the direction you pull that wire around your wreath will kind of help where it lays. So you're just going to twist tie this again 3 or 4 times. And then I'm going to take one of those tails and tuck it through a couple of extra strands on here and then wind it up again just to get that added layer of security. You're going to do that with all your pots, just alternating the direction that they're going in and just kind of have fun with it. Make it really whimsical and fun. I have all of these different flowers here that I'm using, and the ones I end up using are all these ones kind of up more to the left there. They all came from Hobby Lobby, some picks that I had from there. So I'm just going, I thought these were fun spring colors, bring a pop of color into everything. When I made this wreath before, I did it all in kind of a white and green look, which is really fun, very French country, but I wanted something just colorful, bright, springtime, just happy, and I think this really works well. So I'm just kind of going through and deciding where I want to put each color. And so, like, for instance, I don't want my purple and my blue next to each other because they're too similar. So I'm just kind of deciding where I want to glue everything in at. This is when you could really have fun with different florals that you want to use, or even succulents would be so cute in here. One of the ladies at the craft night that I did, she put all of her flowers on the actual wreath, kind of wove them into the grapevine, and then she was doing little bird nests on top of all of the pots that she wanted to do with some birds and some eggs, and I thought that was a super cute idea. So have fun. I'm just teaching you the basics here, and you can take these tools and this instruction and customize it and make it truly your own. So now I'm going to glue all of these in. So I just kind of do a little glue ring around the top of the pot, and then I'm going to fit in some Spanish moss here and just use my barbecue skewer to kind of move that moss around into the glue. So that way I'm not using my finger and burning my finger or anything like that. And to be fully honest with you guys, it doesn't matter if you put the moss in or the flowers first. I actually, when I made this a second time, I liked putting the moss in first and then gluing my flowers into the moss, just because I felt like it held my flowers up a little more in the center of the pot rather than on the edge of the pot. But as you can see, this way works just fine too. I decided to use a green color on the moss just because I felt like that really drove home that spring feeling there. I just really wanted this to be so lively and colorful looking. Now I'm taking my heat tool and I'm going around just to get rid of any of those little glue webs that are around. It just kind of melts those into oblivion and makes it look like it's not so covered in hot glue. And then I'm just taking a couple of leaves off this little sprig that I have here with, and just glue them in to look like some spring little leaves in with them. It kind of just adds another little textural element. But look at how fun and springtimey this looks. I just love the colors in this. Those terracotta pots, I love that pop of orange. And then all the colorful colors. I love that you have that little bit of greenery, just kind of like in springtime, the greenery is just starting to wake up, and you have all of that brown grapevine. I just think this turned out so cute, and it really is such an easy process for you to make this wreath, and pretty inexpensive too, to have just this pop of color to welcome in springtime. I would love to know what you guys think of this one. Do you like this? Would you come to craft night if I was teaching this? Everybody seemed to like it, so I hope you guys like it too.
I love this carrot shape that they have at Dollar Tree right now in their crafters section. I bought this and didn't quite know what I wanted to do with it, but I am going to give this little crackling technique to it where I painted my base color on the carrot portion And then I'm putting this crackle medium on top. And then when I paint my top coat on, it's going to give it a nice crackle. I'm going to do some decoupage on this carrot. And I had seen some online that use some of the Dollar Tree tin tiles. However, I kind of wanted that look on the leaves, but those leaves are very intricate cuts and I could not get the tin tiles to cut right. So I'm going to show you how I kind of do my own faux tin tile look to it. So on this carrot part, I'm just, after my crackle medium has dried, I'm just painting a coat of white paint over this. You just want to make sure when you're painting this on that you don't disturb the areas you've already painted, because it can kind of wipe away that crackle effect. So just be careful as you're doing that. Now I'm just taking my hot glue and I'm just kind of making up a design of swirls and dots, little flowers, little squiggly lines to kind of, when I paint this, I want it to look like it's faux tin. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I think this turns out really cute, but this is kind of a way if you want to have that little faux tin look. And like I said, the little cuts inside of this carrot were extremely hard to kind of cut with those plastic tiles you get from Dollar Tree. So I felt like this was the best way to kind of get that look. And I had no rhyme or reason. I just was kind of making a design up in my head, but you could look at some different patterns or some different things on the tin tiles that you would use and maybe kind of come up with your own design that you would want. But I literally was just trying to do swirls and dots and little wavy lines, things like that. Now I just am lightly going over this with my heat tool to get rid of any of the little thin webby strings that come from hot glue. So I do want to come on and in full disclosure let you know that when I came to edit this, you guys, I had missed a whole chunk of me and this carrot. So I just want to explain to you what had happened. On the top part of my leaves, like the faux tin that I'm painting here, I just painted with a celery color or moss color of paint, just a green color for my leaves. That's all I did. On the carrot portion, I put a coat of Mod Podge and let it dry. And then this little bunny was just a napkin that I placed down and put my heat press over the top to adhere it to the carrot. I felt so bad when I came to edit this and had missed that footage. I don't know what exactly happened, but this was too cute to not share. So hopefully, if you have questions, let me know down in the comments and I'll see if I can answer them as best as I can. So now I'm just going over the napkin portion with a little bit of Mod Podge on that sponge tool to give it a nice protective coat on there, and that will dry and that napkin will be protected. Now, if you wanted to hang this, which I'm going to do, I just took some twine and tied off a loop, and then just using my staple gun, which I've decided to turn the correct way to get a little bit better leverage. I just put a couple staples in the back because I have a place that I want to hang this from off of a shelf, and I thought it was so cute. Now, I did feel like when I went to hang it that it needed a little something, so I have this little pip berry that I wrapped around it there. I don't know, are you guys a fan of that or should I take that off? I can't decide. But either way, I think this turned out so cute. I did hit that little faux tin part with a little bit of dry brushing with some white paint to kind of make those raised areas a little bit stand out more. But I really do think that you can tell that's what that's supposed to look like, is that faux tin. I don't know, you guys are going to have to let me know what you think of this one. I think it turned out so cute. I have this piece in my Dollar Tree crafting stash, but you may already have something similar to this at home that maybe you want to do a little update to. We're going to give this a little makeover. I'm going to show you two different variations on what I do with this. You can kind of mix and match. Now, I found these darling little bird images on Etsy. I just have a thing for decorating with birds. I think they're so cute, especially for springtime, but honestly, I decorate with them year round. And they have these cute little crowns. I just thought they were so fun. So I printed some of these out here. I just sized them to my little circular shapes there. And then I'm going to do on the back side of them, this is that scrapbook paper in my mystery box that Lisa from Dollar Mom sent me. And so I'm going to cut some circles out of this. So if you don't have a printer or you don't want to be able to like purchase something off of Etsy or anything, you can just use some scrapbook paper and do this DIY as well. So I just trace the little circle shape on the scrapbook paper and I'm just cutting that out. Now this is my trusty Elmer school glue. You guys know I absolutely love this stuff for these kind of projects. So I'm just going to use this really well around the edges, and then I'm just going to make sure that the back is coated completely with that Elmer school glue. And then I will just center this as best I can. I eyeball everything, you guys. So I'm just setting this down in my middle there, and then I'm just going to rub it down with my hands. You can use a brayer if you want. On a project this small, I felt like I was getting a good enough bond between the paper and the surface. Now, I do have some people comment that maybe in higher humidity areas that the Elmer school glue maybe doesn't hold up as well over years, depending on how long you want to display this. Mod Podge might be the way to go. It would be kind of the same process. You would just put the Mod Podge either on the back of the paper or on your surface and place down your paper. Now I'm doing the two different, the full back with my scrapbook paper and the front side with all the birds. But think of how cute this would be to have it dual-sided for different holidays. Maybe you're going to switch from St. Patrick's Day to Easter, or Valentine's Day to St. Patrick's Day, fall to Christmas, or even just have it to mix and match different images, different cute scrapbook papers on those. So then when you're displaying it, you can kind of flip it to whatever mood you're in or just however it falls. Now, I thought that the little tassel on the end of this was a little bit long. So you guys, I went to kind of straighten it out. Watch what happens. I go to pick it up here and oh my gosh, it fell apart. So keep in mind, if you have this from Dollar Tree, be very careful with it. It's actually a good thing that it happened because I went through and rethread it all with my twine. I just was kind of playing around with that tassel and wanted to trim it up a little bit. So I just got some jute twine and I just did the exact same pattern, fed that twine through each little piece and totally rethreaded this. So just keep that in mind, that sometimes on those older projects that you may have or older pieces you may have, you may need to update the hardware or your thread or your twine, because as things age or have been hanging in your house for a while or something, they may start to loosen up and just need a complete refresh. So I'm just going to thread this through the tassel here. That tassel was in great condition. It just was, I felt like a little long for this piece and it wasn't quite as even on the bottom as I like. So I just tie that on here and then just make sure that it's trimmed up to exactly where I like it. Overall, I am so pleased with how this turned out. I think it's so fun to take a piece that maybe needs a refresh or kind of to jazz up a little bit and take just something as simple as paper or print some little images out, and how quickly it becomes a completely different and new piece. I think this is such a fun concept, especially if you do them where you can have the dual sides that either complement each other, or you can have one side, like I said earlier, be for one holiday, another side be for another season or holiday. And it's just something fun and easy to do to have for that little piece of decor in your home. You guys are going to have to let me know what you think of this one. This project is so fun and it really does scream springtime or just that fresh garden vibe. So you can use any kind of bucket or planter that you have. That was just one. It came from IKEA, but I did pick it up at a yard sale. And then this little bundle of, these are grapevine wreaths, and I honestly think they're supposed to be together like this. It was $3.99 from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to cut them apart and I'm just going to use one of them because I thought it looked a little too thick, and I don't really know that these were intended to be cut apart like this, but there's no reason you couldn't do that. So then you get two projects out of it. And then I'm just taking some floral foam here and I'm just going to cut this. I just use my putty knife to cut that fairly easily. And I'm just shoving some craft paper down there so that will kind of help the foam stick up a little bit there, so it'll be flush with the top of the pail. And I just stick all that foam in so that way I have a good surface to work with. Now I'm taking some Spanish moss and I'm just going to glue around all of the edges here. I just put a little hot glue down. I grabbed that Spanish moss just in little clumps there and I just kind of put it around. Be careful when you're pushing that down because the glue does seep up through that and you can really burn yourself, which, you know, I may or may not be speaking from experience here. But I'm just gluing all of this all the way around, and you don't necessarily have to use Spanish moss if that's something that it's too messy for you or you don't love it. I mean, you could use some reindeer moss if you wanted. There's definitely different options that you have here. Now I do go around and just trim the edges here because I want kind of a cleaner look. Maybe not super clean, but it was kind of getting a little squirrely and out there. Now I'm taking some of my fencing wire. This is just wire that we had from our farm that we use when we fix our fences and everything. And I'm just cutting a little piece of it and making like a hook. Kind of like when you're putting flowers, I don't know, at the cemetery on Memorial Day and you take your wire hangers. Do you guys remember doing that to help the flowers stay in the ground? I just remember doing that a lot with my grandparents when I was younger. So I'm just folding these little wires over, making little hooks, and that's going to stick down into that floral foam that we have there. Or I guess it's just styrofoam, not floral foam. And it's just going to make that little wreath stand up there in your pail. Now I have this is from a project I did last year that I pulled out the greenery, and then this is Dollar Tree greenery right here that I'm showing you. So this is just like a vine that I got from Dollar Tree. But when I stuck this one up that I took it out of another project that I did. I really liked the way this one looked. So I'm just going to cut a couple of sprigs off of it. But really, Walmart has like beautiful boxwood or eucalyptus that would work that you can get for like 97 cents a sprig. So you definitely, I mean, if you wanted to use flowers or something to do this, you could. But I'm just taking the two sprigs and I'm sticking it down in, so one kind of goes off one direction and the other goes off the other. So it's going to try to look like it's growing up around the wreath, kind of like a vine. So I just kind of will not really break, but kind of pull apart some of the grapevine and stick some of the little greenery through it. That's what's going to help it look like this greenery is growing around the wreath there. Now I happen to have this little nest in my stash here, and this would be completely optional, but I really did feel like this drove home the springtime feel. I love how clean it looks without it as well. So I mean, it's something you could easily remove if you didn't want that there, but I'm just making a little hook there with the wire and just to kind of help get it into place there. And I'm going to show you guys what it looks like with it and without it, and you can tell me which one you like the best. But I really just think this is so beautiful. I've seen these in the craft stores or in boutiques or anything like that. I've seen these go for like $30, $40, maybe even more than that. But I really just think that this looks so pretty and so natural that it would be beautiful in any space. What do you guys think of this one? This is such a fun little thrift flip hack. Maybe you have some vintage items laying around. We're going to make a cute little spring vignette. Now I picked this little metal box up and this little green frog at Vintage Market Days. This little drawer has a wooden front. It's all metal. It has this darling little pole on it. And I've been looking for a little flower frog like this that is this green color, and I finally found one and I'm so excited. Now, to put my pieces in here, when I do little vignettes like this, I like to use this little tacky stuff here. It's so nice because it's not permanent, but it's going to hold things in place. So if you happen to have it on a shelf or something like that, maybe a lot of traffic through the area, it's not going to like vibrate or bump anything. It's going to fall. It just gives things a nice cushion to kind of sit on and use. I have this little teacup here that I made. I'll post the video in my description box if you want to have a look at me doing this cute little teacup here. It's just a little cup that I put the little word dream on and a little nest, but that tacky stuff helps hold it in place so it's not going to like slip or fall. Now I have this little bunny image here that I've used. I printed several of these off over the years to use in different DIY projects. So I just went through all of my Easter stuff and grabbed things that I had. And so with this, I just tore the edges so it looked kind of a little more vintage, and I'm going to kind of wrinkle and crinkle this so it looks really old and aged. I even take my fingernail file and I give this a good sanding here, and so all of those crinkled areas that are raised up and everything will get a little bit of a vintage, more faded vibe to it. Totally optional, but it's just something to kind of help this look like it's been around for a minute or two. To age this one step further, I'm taking just a little bit of antiquing wax. This is just a little finger dauber here that I picked up. I actually found these finger daubers at Hobby Lobby. I've never seen them there before, but they were down the aisle where like the rubber stamps and the distressing ink is. And so if you're happening to look for some, I'm sure you probably find some on Amazon. I was just pretty excited that I was there and found them. I've really liked having them so far to use for items. They wash up really nice. So instead of like a baby wipe, you can keep using these. I'm not sure exactly how many times they'll last for, but more than a baby wipe, I will say that. So I'm just going around the edges, and then I also go over the front of the design. So this just kind of puts a little bit of antiquing wax anywhere that you tore or sanded. This paper is going to just like, that ink's going to saturate into those areas and make it look really vintagey, really like it's been around. You found it maybe cleaning out great grandma's shed and thought, oh, look at this cute little Easter thing. I don't know. I just think I love stuff looking like this. So it's just a matter of personal taste. I also do the back of it. I have people once in a while say like, oh, what do you do to the back of it? I do the same thing to the back of it. So it looks nice from every angle. Now I will just glue a craft stick to the back here because we're going to use this. I wanted a little bit of sturdiness on this. And so I'm going to just put a little bit of glue there. So that way I have a way to stand this up in my cute little drawer. Now these are all the pieces that I've decided to use in here. I did do this bundle of carrots out of some old spindles or bobbin thread holders that I had, so I can link the video to that if you would like. I literally just went and found a bunch of stuff that would maybe work. Some of it I use, some of it I end up not using. And it's just so fun to kind of place things together and make cute little vignettes and use what you have. And then maybe as you see things like this, when you're out doing your thrifting or you're going through something, or maybe you're visiting vintage market days, you can see pieces and think, oh, I remember that. I want to try that or something. So hopefully this just gets those creative juices flowing. Now I had that little, I'm not even sure what you call it. Sort of like a handle of a door would go in, like the little door handle, the lock part. I picked that up for just a couple of dollars at my local antique store, and I've been hanging on to it. And it actually looks really cute in this little vignette. So I was quite pleased that I got to use that. A lot of this stuff is just vintage stuff that I've found or thrifted or made. So that kind of makes it a lot of fun. Now, not everything needed to have that tacky stuff on there, the tacky putty, but I did put some on the back of the craft stick of the bunny postcard, and then also I put some on the bottom of that teacup, as I showed you earlier, to help that kind of stay in place. I think I ended up putting some on that little bird as well on the edge, just to kind of help hold him in place so he doesn't go anywhere. Anywhere that I have any gaps or anything, I just kind of put in a little bit of Spanish moss to kind of fill in any gaps, as I said. And that way it just kind of makes it look like maybe this was something left out in your shop that some birds decided to come and make a cute little nest and make a little home out of. And so maybe you have a couple different family of birds have lived there at different times. The trick that you want to remember when doing a cute little vignette like this is you just want to look for different textures, different types of materials. So I have like the metal, I have the wood, I have the little Spanish moss or the coconut liner of the little egg nest there, the paper, some artificial plants. You just want to look for a lot of different things that go together. And I pulled a lot of things out and only a few of them made it in, and that's okay. And I may even change this as the season goes on, think of something else that be like, oh, this would be really cute in there too, or maybe I'll change this out for this. That's the fun with these little DIY projects, is they are so versatile. You can customize them however you want. It's just kind of a fun little hack to use some little knick-knacky things that you might have to make a beautiful vignette. What do you guys think of this one? I found this on clearance at Hobby Lobby, and I thought it would be perfect for Easter time since it has the egg timer instructions on it to make it into a cute little bunny on one side. So on the back side, I'm just going to paint the wood white to match, and then I'm going to make a cute little nose. Now, I originally cut it out of cardboard, and then I got thinking I wanted it to be a little sturdier. So I went to tracing one out on just like the really oversized craft sticks that you can pick up at Walmart. This just came off of the back of one of my other projects that I didn't need anymore, and I just cut it out with some scissors. They're thin enough that if you have a good pair of scissors, you can cut out that shape. Honestly, if you had like a little heart cut out, I think that would work fine, as well as like a guitar pick. I honestly was like, that's about what shape it is. Just something to resemble the shape of the nose. After you cut it out, you're just going to take your fingernail file or sander, and you're just going to soften the edges, make it look like it's not so harsh, like it's a soft, cute little bunny nose. I chose a cute little color of pink to give to the nose. Now I just need some bunny ears. So on a piece of cardboard or something, you just want to trace out the shape of a bunny ear. I just free-handed this. You can kind of see the shape that I chose there. And I'll just take this template and trace this onto my fabric. I will double the fabric up, which I'll show you here in just a moment. And then just using some pinking shears, I cut enough fabric out so you have 2 bunny ears. You need a front piece and a back piece for each ear. So that's why you double your fabric up when you cut it out, and then you're cutting out your ear. I'm just using my mini heat press to iron these nice and flat. I love that mini heat press. I use it way more than I ever thought I would. Now I'm just trying to see how I want to pinch these together to have them stand on my little face that I'm doing. And you can see that I'm just going to glue the front and the back together. You definitely need to double the fabric up so you have enough sturdiness for your ears to stand up. So this is just showing you I'm gluing these together just like it were a pillow or something here. You could put a little stuffing in these if you wanted to. I chose not to. I'll show you how I fold them and set them on top. I think they turn out really cute though. But this is where you could really use all of those creative juices that you've got, come up with some fun different fabrics to use for the ears, really make it your own. Now, when I bend them in half, I really like the crinkle that it gives them, for lack of a more technical term. I just like the fold in them, and that's going to help them stand up. So you can see I'm just putting a little bit of glue down there where that fold happens, and I'll just hold that together, and that's going to give a little curve to your ear and help it stand straight up. I chose to glue down the little bit of fabric on the back that the little fold created. That also helps give it a little bit more stability. I decided to glue my ears kind of together, so I had one piece that I'm gluing onto the top of my bunny face. So you can see how I just did a little dot of glue there. I think that also helps these stand up. And then I'm just gluing a little bit on the base, as you can see here, and it will just glue right down. And they kind of curve over on themselves. I do a little bit of fold with my finger to help that glue cure that way. And then as it dried, I left them sitting flat like this. And so that helps, those ears will stand straight up. I'm excited for you to see how it turns out. I made a little finger bow here, just wrapping that twine around my finger several times and tying it off in the middle. I'm going to glue this in my bunny's quote unquote hair right up in front of its ears. And that will also bring a little bit more stability and cover up the edges of the fabric. So you can see exactly where I'm going to place that. I like to distress everything, so this is a totally personal option, but I felt like it really needed something else to kind of bring a little rustic touch into it. So I sanded the paint away from the edges and then just ran my finger over it with a little bit of antiquing wax. Now I'm very carefully freehanding this face. Freehanding things scares the daylights out of me. I am not great at it. I am very a nervous person when it comes to this. So I had found a face online on Pinterest that I just decided to use as inspiration and do. I just really liked how it looked. And so I thought, okay, because I am just somebody who is not great at painting the details like this. So this right here, I was having a little bit of anxiety when I was doing this. So I placed my nose down to kind of know where I wanted to place that, where I wanted to put my eyes. I had to turn up my little face, the bunny hair, upside down because the picture I found had kind of like teardrop eyes. You could just do circles. You could do however. I even went as far as doing a little bit of eyebrows, which made me so nervous. I mean, in the end, it turns out okay, but this part really, I just am not great at it. And practice is the only thing I'm going to ever get better at this with. So I'm trying my best. But in the end, I mean, it's homemade. It looks rustic. It looks cute. And I think it turns out really good. So this is just doing that little crease that comes down from your bunny nose. The inspiration I found, it kind of pulled it off the bottom like this, and I really thought that was cute. And then I just add a couple of little cutesy dot touches here, kind of where its whiskers would be, and also some little dots on the nose. So I'll just kind of let you watch. I'm drying this so I don't mess anything up because I was fairly happy with it. So now I'll just go add those little finishing touches. So you can kind of see how fun it is coming together there. And if those little dots aren't your thing, then you just can skip that step there. I thought it would be really fun to add some little whiskers onto our little bunny here. So I'm taking some fencing wire. This is just from our farm. It's a little bit probably thicker gauge than what I would probably need rather than a crafter's gauge, but it's what I have. So I just wrapped them around my pencil and kind of pulled them taut a little bit to kind of loosen that curl. And then I'm just going to glue 2 of these little pieces of wire down. And I think this adds a really fun element to it. I just think these whiskers actually make this little bunny face. Once those are dry, I'm going to glue down the nose, and I'll just hold that. Since I have all of the wire and everything there as a 3-dimensional element, I just want to make sure that nose is really good and in place. I just use my heat gun to blast away any of the little gluey webs that get all over it. Now, so one side I have my egg timer, the other side is this adorable bunny face. How perfect is this for Easter? I originally bought these little signs. I bought a few of them just to use this shape. I love that shape for 87 cents. You couldn't beat that. But I thought for Easter, this is perfect because then when I go to do my hard-boiled eggs for my Easter potato salad, I can flip it over and it's got the instructions for how long I need to boil my eggs for. I thought this was perfect. What do you guys think of this darling little bunny?
I found this beautiful egg at Hobby Lobby. It was just a plain egg, which would be beautiful in your decor as is, but I wanted to jazz it up a little bit and make it kind of my own. So I have these beautiful stencil transfers that I got. They're not stencils, they're rub-on transfers, but they come from a company called Essential Stencils, which I love their products. I'm not sponsored or anything by them. I truly love their product. It's such high quality and I love using them. So you can see there's several different beautiful bunnies on here that I could use, and I'm going to do one on each side. The first one I decided was this one here in the center with this beautiful almost wreath around it. I thought this was so beautiful, so I'm going to go ahead and use it first. Now I'm just using my hand saw, my little table saw, the little miter box with it, and it works really well with some paper there to hold this because you're going to want something stable for your egg. Now I accidentally made contact right there and went, oh no, I couldn't move it up a bit. I wish I could have moved it up about an inch or half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, anything. It just sits a little bit lower than I wanted it to, which is fine. But just know that when you're working with these rub-on transfers, at least the ones from Essential Stencils, that once your surface hits the backing of that rub-on transfer, you're kind of married to it. Now, I'm kind of realizing quickly here that this is not your run-of-the-mill, this is going to be so easy, place down your transfer, scrape it, and you're done. Have you ever done a transfer on an egg shape before? It's a lot more difficult than you think, but stick with it. It ended up working out. I had to kind of trim, just as working with a round surface. I just decided to make this really difficult on myself, I guess, doing it on this egg shape. But you just trim around your stencil. I keep saying stencil, your transfer. There we go. You trim around your transfer and you can see I'm just going to work on the little areas. And when I get that area all placed down, I will work on the next area. You can see I peel back the back or it's not the backing, it's kind of the plastic film on the front, and then I'll lay the next piece down and it will kind of overlap over, but since it's these beautiful flowers, it really just kind of blends in. You can't tell that you've overlapped the design. The one thing you want to make sure that you do when you're working on a curved surface, if you're working with I have bunnies, so the bunnies have a face, you obviously don't want to overlap anything on the face. So I would suggest when you first lay it down to kind of smooth out the face first and then kind of work your way out from that. So you can see I'm just being extremely careful here. I just don't want, if you start to peel this up and can see that it's not transferring, you just lay it back down again and you're just going to scrape a little bit. and make sure that that is completely adhered to your surface. So this right now, I'm just trying to get that face and the ears all very smooth, because with the shape of the egg, I've created quite a bit of air pockets. Now, something happens because of the air pockets on this, which I've actually never had happen before with the transfer, and I think it's because of the glossy ceramic finish on this. I'll show you when I peel this back. There's just kind of like some little air bubbles, but they're super easy to take care of and like literally just disappear. So you can see here, I'm just carefully peeling everything back to reveal the transfer. And when I go to kind of rub over it, I notice there's like this little spot. You can kind of see this like weird little air bubble. I was like, what? How did that even get? I couldn't figure it out. But all I did was just grab like a little utility knife, just something like a little like weeding tool or something that you've got, to just kind of, once I poked that and let the pressure of the air out, it just disappeared completely. Now, when I set it down like this, that's when I really went, oh, it's a lot lower than I would like. I'll show you at the end how both of them look, both sides. It really doesn't look bad or anything. I had just wished that I was able to place it up a little bit higher. But now I've learned a little bit, so we're going to do the other side of the egg, and I'm going to kind of do the same steps. However, the exception I'm making is I'm cutting my transfer before I place it down. So anywhere I feel like I could naturally have like a slice in there to like be able to manipulate the transfer, I'm just doing a little bit of that to help it fit the curve of the egg. And you're going to get this anytime you work with a curved surface. It just happens to be that on an egg, you've got like a curved surface, plus you've got like the skinny and the moving to a larger surface, like just with the natural egg shape. So I'm just making sure to smooth out my bunny's face, making sure that the eyes and everything are crisp and flat and clear. That's the part that you want to have be the most flat and not having any wrinkles in it or anything like that. And so I'm just paying really close attention to that and then working my way out from there. And I just follow all of the same rules as far as using a rub-on transfer, just making sure that on all those little sections that I trimmed and snipped, that I just work really carefully with each one. If I peel it back and it starts to bring part of the design, I lay it back down, make sure it's transferred really well. I do go over both sides with some Mod Podge to help protect it a little bit. This is just going to add an extra layer of glossiness to it if you want it to all look glossy, depending on what you use. Now, this is the first design that I did where it's sitting a little low. Looking at it in this picture, though, I think it looks fine. So you're going to have to let me know what you think, but I just think this is the most beautiful design. These eggs literally look like these bunnies were painted on them. It's amazing how beautiful these look. I mean, look at this one. This one's sitting up a little bit higher, so I do kind of like the positioning of this one more. I like the coloring on the other egg, the other bunny, a little bit better, but oh my gosh, I don't know. This one is so beautiful now that I'm looking at it. I love that it's double-sided, so I can kind of turn it to match, or if you were to see it from different areas, you wouldn't have to do two on this one. I just decided to where the other one sat a little bit lower. You're going to have to let me know what you think of this egg, because I think it's beautiful, and what a wonderful addition to have to your collection of Easter decor. I am doing my sugar mold with this DIY, and you guys have had so many requests for doing my sugar mold with a different Easter design, and I am going to make this over. Now, if you guys are not familiar with me or you're new, I have this sugar mold. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them vintage, like through antique or flea markets. I'll try to leave some links down in my description box. A lot of times you find them with candles in them that you melt them down, and then you can do all sorts of fun things with them. But I change mine out for different seasons and do all sorts of fun different decor things with them. And I had one for Easter that I had done that I typically do with like carrots coming out of it, which is so cute, but I decided to do a little bit of a religious twist on this one, and I love how this turns out. Now I'm just filling the little sugar mold spots there with some pool noodles, some Spanish moss would work, some styrofoam, anything that you have to fill up those gaps would totally work.
I'm just trying to glue a little bit of a mound on this center one here. I wanted it to sit a little bit higher than the others. I'm going to do 3 crosses. Now I took my daughter and we went down to the farm to find some sticks to kind of use for these. It was kind of a fun little thing that the both of us did, so it kind of has that sentimental value. You could use some dowels if you didn't have access to any sticks or anything, but it is that fun time of year where it's starting to warm up. At least where we live, we're finally getting some nice weather. It was fun to go on a little bit of a walk around our farm and find some different sticks that we wanted to use to do this project with. So I'm just going to use some hot glue to give these a little bit of stability, and I'm going to make 3 crosses. 2 of them I wanted smaller, and then I wanted the one larger cross to be a little bit in the forefront and have it be like the main focus of the piece here. I am going to tie these with some twine. So right now the hot glue is just trying to give them a little bit of stability just to hold them in place. And that way they're not going to be going like any wonky direction or anything like that. So not a lot of hot glue is needed right here, but just a little bit to hold it into place. Now on our bigger cross that's going in the front, I am using a thicker twine. It's more like that thicker rope twine. I get it at Walmart. I think it's like $13 or something like that for a big huge spool of it. I love this, but for the smaller crosses I definitely went with like more of like the Dollar Tree grade of twine because I felt like that fit a little bit more. But I really loved the natural look of the twine on there. That also gives a little bit of stability as well. I didn't really have a rhyme or reason with how I was putting this on, just as long as it kind of made an X across the front of the cross and wound it around a couple of times and then just tied it off with just a regular knot in the back. So I'm using my scissors to kind of poke some holes down into the pool noodles here. I'm doing this mostly because my sticks are pretty brittle. I didn't want them to break. Now I'm going to show you, I'm just showing you that this is just a trick or hack that you can use to do, because I end up not even using these holes, because as I'm putting these in here, I'm like, this is going to look way crowded and not quite what I wanted. So as I'm sticking them in, I'm kind of realizing there's not really space for my bigger cross that goes in the forefront there. So I stick them in anyway and go, I don't love that, it's too crowded. So I take these 2 on the side out, and I wanted them to look like they were kind of farther away anyway. And so I just kind of move them back to, you can kind of see the back of the hole on the sugar mold there, and place it down in. So, but it is kind of a nice little hack to know that when you're working with pool noodles, that just using some scissors to poke your hole in there to kind of give you like a leader hole. So that way you can kind of stick whatever, you know, your floral you're working with or anything would, you know, be able to go in. So I'm just poking a new hole here to move the bigger cross up to the forefront. And then I am just careful to be pretty gentle because, like I said, these sticks are kind of brittle. They've been out, you know, all winter long, whenever they're kind of pretty dried out. So I have a little bit of reindeer moss here that I just picked up at the craft store. You can get this at Dollar Tree. I have noticed that the last couple of bags I've gotten have been so crispy and dry. And usually reindeer moss has kind of a nice, like, softness, like buoyancy almost, I guess. I don't know. But if you just spritz it with a little bit of a mister bottle, and that way it kind of helps rejuvenate it, gives it a little bit more of like the texture that you're used to it having. That's just a great idea to have there when you're working with reindeer moss. And it just takes maybe like 5 minutes or so for that to soak in, and it's going to be totally brand new and so nice to work with and not crunching everywhere and getting all over your things, because reindeer moss is so nice to work with because it's not like Spanish moss where it's kind of messy and, you know, and is brittle and breaks everywhere. So if yours is feeling like that or super hard, spritz it with a little bit of a mister bottle. Now I'm just making this look like grass underneath these crosses here, so I'm just using some hot glue, and then I will just gently fill these up with the reindeer moss to have it look like a little grassy hill.
Now I did mount up the pool noodle on our center main cross, and so it will have a little bit more area that you'll have to cover, and it kind of, because I just wanted it to look like it was more the center focal point, and so that's why I went with the bigger cross, and I did the pool noodle so that way it looked like it was higher up on a hill. Now you could definitely leave your project here and be done and it would be absolutely beautiful, but I love to decorate my sugar mold, like the base of it, and I have this beautiful birch ribbon. It's more like a paper than a ribbon really because it tears actually pretty easily, but it came from Dollar Tree and it's beautiful and it's larger than a lot of the ribbon that you see at Dollar Tree. The width is pretty wide on it, and so it really kind of helps bring that natural element to this DIY. Now if you're not familiar with a sugar mold, it's not exactly like a rectangular brick shape. So it's really hard sometimes to get things to go around it. So you always have to kind of get fancy with folding it in the back. So if this is a project that you're like, nope, I have to have it look cohesive all the way around, you probably don't want to do this part to it, because no matter what you do, because it starts out skinnier and gets wider as it gets to the top of the sugar mold. And so putting things around it, they just don't fit really well. So I always have to get creative, and I try to make it look as nice as I can in the back. You can see how I'm folding the ribbon there, but that's kind of how you have to do it to get it to fit nicely. So just a heads up on that, but it always looks really good. And where I place my sugar mold, it's up against a wall, so you don't see that anyway. Now this is just some like ticking ribbon that I got at Hobby Lobby. I thought it was really beautiful. I kind of went with the natural tones with this. I really liked that. And I don't really ever glue directly onto my sugar mold. Mine is a replica. It's not an antique, so I don't feel super bad if glue gets on it. However, I still try to protect it so I can decorate it for all sorts of different seasons. So when I'm putting my first layer of ribbon, I glue the ribbon to itself, and so that's what's holding it. If a little bit of glue gets on, like I said, to the sugar mold, it's not a huge deal, but I really try not to specifically glue directly to it. So I'm just making the ticking ribbon look nice here. I'm going to fold it over so I don't have any frayed edges or anything, and then place that down there on itself. So that's how I'm affixing that. Now this really, because of that weird shape to it, it did not want to sit pretty down on the bottom portion of the ribbon. So I'm just putting a little line of hot glue. Again, it's gluing directly to the ribbon beneath it, and it's just going to help flatten that out. And it was just the littlest bead of hot glue. And I go around even on the sides because I'm realizing, I'm like, wow, that looks really nice and flat and smooth. So I do it on the sides as well. Ordinarily, I had picked out another layer of a little pink ribbon to go over this, but I was loving the natural colors so much that I decided to leave them, and I decided to make a little sign to go on the front here. Now this is just a little placeholder that I got in the party section at the craft store. It's actually a chalkboard on the other side, but I don't have lovely handwriting to write beautiful signs like this, so I do end up using my cutting machine to make a little sign. But if you have beautiful handwriting, by all means, you could definitely handwrite this. Now, I'm just using some paint rather than antiquing wax, just watered down, because whenever I use a vinyl like this, it does not want to stick to antiquing wax. I'm sure it's something to do with the fact that it's wax and it doesn't want to stick to it. But just a little bit of paint, it worked just fine. I just printed this, or not printed, I cut this out. It was just a design from Canva. It says "He is risen" on there, and I'm just going to put that right onto this little placeholder. I love buying these little tags or name placeholder things in the party section at the craft store. They're so fun to use for projects like this, and I have this whole stack of different shapes, and I use them all the time. Now I'm just trying to place this where I want it there to set it, and I kind of stick it up, and then I just decide to glue it down permanently. So I'm just going to put a little bead of glue on it, and again, it'll glue directly to the ribbon. And I just eyeball it as best to get it centered as I can. It's just, it's a rustic fill anyway, but I think I do a pretty good job getting it centered. But again, if you want to measure, you can definitely do that. But I just went ahead and eyeballed it, and I think it came out all right. I think this turns out absolutely beautiful. Now I realize you cannot see what it looks like, so I went and took some more pictures. I just put a little plate in the background so you didn't have my crosses mix into my brick background, but I just think this is perfect for Easter. Such a great reminder of the great sacrifice that was made for us, and such a beautiful way to bring that true meaning of Easter into your decor. And I just thought this was such a fun way to update my sugar mold for Easter specifically. And I just think this is beautiful. I think this one's going to stay for a little while.
I thought it would be really fun to make a little garland or banner out of some vintage seed packets. And so I got onto Etsy and searched, and there are so many different styles to choose from. These are the ones that I ultimately decided on. I'll leave a link for them down in my description box. It was about $2 for the files, and I actually got 6 more files with them, but I really only needed 6 for the banner that I'm doing. So I just printed these out and cut them out as you saw there. Now I'm going to start making the banner. So I'm just taking my scissors and I'm running it along the edge of each of these to kind of fray it. I really want these to look like seed packets that you found like in your great grandmother's attic, that maybe she thought the artwork on them was so beautiful and she'd been holding on to them for years, and so you're deciding to make a banner or something. I just really wanted to have that vintage look to them. So after I scrape all of the edges with the scissors to kind of rough those up a little bit, I'm just wrinkling the paper, as you can see. Crumple it up, wrinkle it. If it tears, that's totally fine. I just really want a lot of creases to be in here because it will really drive home that vintage look. I'm going to do the same thing on each of the rest of these as I did on that first one. Now to bring out those creases that we made and all of those wrinkles, I'm just using some of my distressing ink. You can pick this up at any craft store, Joann's, Michael's, Hobby Lobby. It is great. And I'm just using the ink pad itself to go around the edge of each of these. Where we roughed that paper up with our scissors, it's going to absorb that ink and really give it that nice look. That's really aged and kind of, really looks rustic. And then as I rub this over, you can see gently on over the wrinkles, it kind of picks up all those raised wrinkles. You can see here the difference between the two. It really picks up that ink and makes it look like it's just been sitting around for years. After all of that ink has dried, I'm going to put a little bit of Mod Podge on each of these, and I'm going to do this on the front and on the back. This is going to protect it. This is printed on cardstock, by the way. I forgot to mention that, and I did just print these with my regular inkjet printer. But I'm just putting Mod Podge over these to help protect them. It's something that I want to pull out maybe from spring to spring or use again. It's not just something that I want to use and then toss or anything like that. We're putting a lot of effort into it, so we want it to stay nice. So this kind of makes it have that nice coated paper feel. Now, if you have any rips or tears in your paper, at this point, the Mod Podge will help seal those, and so it will just kind of look like it's just aged a little bit more. I'm just taking my Crop-A-Dile here to punch some holes into there. I didn't want to use a hole punch because it's a little bit wider and bigger than what I wanted. I just wanted a teeny little hole punch. I didn't want to take a lot away from the design on these, and so I just love the little size on the Crop-A-Dile. But if you have something else to punch a hole in these, that's perfect, and that will work just fine. Now I'm going to take some twine, and this is the thicker rope twine that you can pick up at Walmart. And I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the end, let it kind of dry for just a second so it's still like pliable, and then I'll just kind of wind it with my fingers to kind of make a nice little like needle point almost, so that way it will be really easy to thread through each of these little seed packets. However, just a little bit of tape on the end would do the same thing. So just whatever you've got or whatever method, just be careful if you're rolling your fingers on the hot glue not to burn yourself, because I've done that a time or two. Now, depending on where you hang this, it will depend on how many you print out. It will depend on how far you space them apart. It would be even really cute to put like a wooden bead between each of them. Really use your imagination and dress this up for what you're using it for. I just have a little mirror that I thought this would look really cute hanging in front of. I kind of do different banners for different seasons or holidays, and I thought this would really have that nice kind of potting shed feel, perfect for springtime or just to bring a fresh touch to your house. Look at how beautiful this is hanging up. I love all of these designs. They're some of my favorite flowers, and I just love the idea of using these vintage looking seed packets. Now, if you actually had some vintage seed packets, how cute would that be? Or even just pick up some cute seed packets. I've noticed the artwork on some of the ones that you just find at your garden store or the garden section at your home improvement store all have really cute designs on them. Some of them do. So that would be something you could even look at too. I just love how this looks, and I think it's going to be so adorable in my home. This darling bunny came from Target's Dollar Spot, and they had a bunch of different shapes and sizes of these bunnies. They were in gold or silver, so I picked some of these up, and I want to make a faux chocolate bunny. So I'm just removing the sticker from the bottom here, just using my heat tool to kind of heat up that adhesive so I can scrape it right off. That works great for these projects so you don't have that residue on there. Now I'm using Apple Barrel's, this is burnt umber paint. It's just acrylic paint. If you happen to have a type that you like to use for your faux chocolates, like a spray paint or a paint, let us know down in the comments. This is kind of my go-to, but I'm open to trying something else. It was just a little cold where I was, so I couldn't spray paint, so this is where I went with the acrylic paint. Now I'm just going to give this full coverage. You'll be able to kind of see here as I'm painting this that when that first layer dries, there's a lot of little crevices and detail in the bunny, and so you can kind of see that silver through. So you're definitely going to need multiple coats of paint on this. I think this only took 2, but I mean, kind of reassess your project after each coat of paint. Now you might already have a bunny at home that you're able to try this with, or you might find one somewhere else, but I did pick this up, like I said, at Target's Dollar Spot, and it was perfect for this project. So here's the bunny with 2 coats of paint. I think this is really good coverage. I'm really happy with this. It does have kind of a very matte look to it, and so I kind of want to bring in kind of a glossy or a sheen to it. If you think of like actual chocolate with the cocoa butter they add to it, it kind of has a nice like glossy luster to it. So I'm just using some glossy Mod Podge to get that or achieve that look. So I'm just doing a really, really thin coat over this. You just want to make sure you get everywhere on here to make sure it all has a similar finish to it. So you just want to make sure it's not like clumpy, it's not goopy anywhere, just a nice thin layer of this all over the entire bunny. Now we need to embellish this, add a little bit of detail. It's just kind of flat the way that it's looking. It needed something else there to kind of help this pop when you're using in your decor. So I'm choosing to just use a ribbon around the neck. I had this darling pink gingham ribbon. When you see an actual chocolate bunny, they really do kind of put like, I mean, it's in chocolate, of course, but like a pink or a blue or yellow bow or something around its neck. So I feel like this is a fun way to bring whatever colors you're using for Easter to bring it into your decor. Here's the bunny all the way done. I think this is absolutely darling. The fun thing about this particular bunny is since like the resin or the material that it's made out of was clearly made like in some sort of mold, it actually has like those seams down the side of it. So it actually looks like a chocolate molded bunny. It's so cute. And it shows a little darker on camera here than it actually is. And so it really does have more of a milk chocolate look to it. But again, if you have another type of chocolate color you love to use for projects, let us know down in the comments and we'll check it out and see how that works. But overall, I think this turned out so cute. While going through Target's Dollar Spot, they had these darling ceramic eggs, lots of different colors of them, and these beautiful little egg cups. And I thought they were so cute. I ended up only using 1 egg for the DIY. I did pick up a couple, but I ended up not using them. So it's up to you on what you decide to do. Maybe you've already got some cute little eggs at home you would like to use. So I'm just going to take the sticker off the bottom of this pink egg and use it with the green egg cup. I thought those colors contrasted beautifully. It did take me a minute and a Cricut tool to be able to get this sticker off the bottom, however, so sometimes it takes a little bit of work to get things the way that you want them. You could just place your egg directly in your egg cup and call it good. I thought it would be fun to add a little nest. I know the proportion's off, but I still thought it was so cute to place that in the egg cup. Now I'm just taking a clothespin and taking it apart, and then I glue them together here. We're going to make some carrots to stick inside of this. So I'm just gluing them together to make that carrot shape, and then just take your favorite color of orange paint. You might have some left over from your fall DIYs. It's perfect to pull it back out for spring. I love decorating with that carrot pop of orange in the springtime. Now at the top of our carrot, I get some little Spanish moss, and I'm just going to trim this up into just some little bits and pieces. You don't have to do this step, but I really like the texture that it adds to the carrots. I mean, naturally, when you pull a carrot out of the ground, it probably doesn't have this sitting on it, but it might have some dirt and stuff sitting on the top, so it kind of mimics that. But just with some hot glue that I put at the top of the carrot, I'm just kind of going to dip my carrot down into that. Just push some more or less, however you want on there. I just like to have it really fine so it's not totally out of control. Now this is some boxwood from Walmart. I'm just taking a couple of pieces of these. You can see I just broke off 3 little sprigs to put as my carrot greenery. So I'm just going to glue those onto the back. At the beginning of the season, I actually made several of these carrots that I have to use in different pieces of my decor. I've used them in a bunch. So make as many as you want. I think if you're making some, make a handful of them. I end up only using 3 in this project. I placed just a little bit of Spanish moss down inside that blue egg cup. I thought that the blue and the orange was such a beautiful contrast here, and I really loved that. The Spanish moss just helps kind of hold them in place, like maybe they're planted in the ground. But here are the 2 egg cups together. Do you like one better than the other? They're both so cute to have on a tiered tray because it really just brings a little bit of different variety in and just kind of like a nice little filler piece. I think this is such a great hack if you find these little egg cups. If you can't find the egg cups, I think some little terracotta pots or some little peat pots would also be really cute. I'm guessing that a lot of you probably have a lot of these items in your stash, so I'm going to show you a fun little hack. I have this little bunny I did in last month's 5 under 5, but it came gold like this from Target's dollar spot. But doesn't matter what color your bunny is or what it looks like. I bet you have a bunny in your Easter decor that you could probably use for this. And this is just a little bottle brush carrot tree that came from Dollar Tree. And then I have a little basket that I've used in my decor forever that I thought I would try a new ribbon on. You probably have a little box, a little basket. I guarantee you've got these items in your decor that you could pull out and put something cute together. Now I'm just sticking my carrot down inside of my little basket here. I tried bending it in a couple of ways so it kind of looked like it was kind of bending out of the little basket. And this is just some cocoa liner from the cocoa things that you can get at Dollar Tree right now, the planter fillers that you can use. I like using that. It kind of looks a little bit like Easter grass, but it's not going to get all over like Easter grass will. So I'm just using that to prop everything up, and I think it looks really cute kind of just sitting in there as well. Now these are just some Easter eggs that I have in my stash, so I'm just really going playful with the colors here. So again, you can make this kind of match your decor. You can go as neutral as you want, as playful as you want, but it's just kind of fun to take pieces that you probably already have and repurpose them into like a new little vignette piece that you have for your decor. Now these little carrots came from Dollar Tree and they are very bright orange. I love using carrots in my decor, and I thought this needed something else kind of tucked into the front, so I'm just going to tone them down. Now this is just a clothespin carrot. If you wanted to use something like that, just I'm showing you so you could take a screenshot of that. But that Waverly chalk paint in the pumpkin color is the perfect color for carrots that is not fluorescent. Now this is just some pink gingham ribbon. I'm using this all throughout my decor this year. You can kind of see my little bunny has a matching bow on its neck, so it kind of ties everything in together. And I'm just going to put a ring around my basket and glue it on. And it's nice with the hot glue on the tin with the ribbon, so next year if I decide to do something different, I can change the ribbon up and have a totally different look. But I just tie a sweet little bow and put that on the front, and I'm calling this good. This is such a fun, budget-friendly way to take pieces that I guarantee you've got in your decor, and you can kind of put them all together and create a nice, fresh new piece for your display that you have. What do you guys think of this? Is this something that you would try? This is such a fun project, and you just use one of these planks from Dollar Tree, one of these signs, and you just cut them down to be about 3 inches a piece. And depending on the length of your sign, the one that I got, I was able to get 6 of these little pieces per one that I cut. So I'm just showing you that you just spray, if you want the paper off, you just spray a little bit of water on there and you just kind of work with it. I had to use a putty knife to scrape it a little bit to help get that cleared off. You can see my other 2 up in the corner there. That was from a separate sign and the design peeled off, but it left a little bit of residue behind. That's fine because I'm going to cover them with a design. Now I have used these prints right here in an Easter banner that I made, and I love that banner so much, and I think these designs are so beautiful, and it's so fun to be able to take some images that maybe you purchased, and rather than just have a one use for them, now I have another Easter DIY that I can tie in with that. So I'm just going to be like a really messy coat on the edge of these, just a dry kind of brush, just sparse, just so it looks like these are just old pieces of scrap painted wood or something that you've had around. I do really like the feel of the kind of painted edges here, the really sparsely painted edges. I think that really does look nice, but you can just leave them the plain color that is on there, as you know, just make sure all the sides are cohesive there. So just really quickly, I go through on all of these pieces, and I do this before I put the paper on. Now this is printed on cardstock, and I printed this using my inkjet printer. Anybody can do this if you have an inkjet printer at home. And I love using this purple Elmer school glue for these projects. If you're a fan of Mod Podge and that works for you, definitely do that because that would also work. So I give a really good coat of the glue to the block there, and then I just place this down, and I'm going to use my brayer to make sure that I get a really good bond. Now I made sure to print out 2 of each of these designs so that way I could have one for the front and one for the back. Now you could easily take these and make them with one design on the front and then have something like this is Easter. You could put summer on the other side, or spring, or 4th of July, whatever you wanted to do. That way you could flip these around if you had them on a tiered tray and use them for multiple times rather than setting them away, especially if they were like on a shelf somewhere that you were using just in your decor, because they're so perfect as a little shelf sitter. Then you could just flip it around for the next season or something like that. So they're very versatile, and this is a DIY that you can use for like any season, anytime, any holiday. It's so fun to do and have these here. So one thing you do want to make sure when you're doing them on the front and on the back is you just want to make sure that you glue them so they're both the same direction. And I mean that if you were to see it from the back side, that it's not upside down. I might be speaking from experience here and have glued one. So I'm just showing you, I'm double checking that one going, oh good, I got it the right direction. But again, the same process for all of these. It's just a little bit of glue. You're going to place your picture down, make sure it's the correct direction. And then I do always just make sure to use my brayer just to get a really good bond there. I feel like that just works really well. But if you have something else that you like to use, go ahead and do that. One thing that I like to do on the edge is I just take my fingernail file and I sand the edge, and you just want to make sure you sand in the direction that is not peeling your paper up. And so each side you'll use that in a downward motion. This is going to give you that nice crisp clean edge. If you have another way to do this that you like to get your edges done, perfect, but I really love using that fingernail file. It really does give you that, it looks like it's customized. Plus around the corners of the paper I like to sand just a little bit, and that way you get a nice little rustic edge to it. I'm just using a little bit of Waverly's antiquing wax right here, and I am just taking my just like a baby wipe or paper towel or something, and I'm just rubbing this onto the edge. The edge of that paper where you sanded that will soak that up really well and give this a nice finished look. This is totally optional. However, I feel like it does finish this project off very nicely and make it look a little bit more like it's not just paper onto a block. But I think these turned out so beautiful. I did a bunch of different designs of these to have, especially if you are somebody who crafts to sell. These little blocks here, I mean, you paid $1 for the little sign at Dollar Tree, but you could easily turn around and sell all of the ones that you get on your block. Maybe if you sold them in a set, you could sell it for like $15 to $20. I mean, that is a great return on your money there. But I just think they're a perfect little item to have just as a decor piece. What did you guys think of these? Did you like them? This one is kind of a trash to treasure. This is a Stevens hot chocolate. It's not really like a tin because it's kind of like a cardboard feeling. And honestly, this winter, if you guys noticed, if you guys drink hot chocolate like this, they've changed their containers. So now they're kind of a plasticky container, which kind of made me sad because I really like using these. But this is about the same size as like a Quaker Oats, like the oatmeal canister that you can buy. So if you're looking for that shape, I believe those still come in something that you could do this with really easy. But I love that this has the metal around the top and the bottom. It's just kind of fun to play around with. So I just take off that layer of the paper, the advertising on it. I sanded it down if there were any imperfections because I'm going to paint this. So I just wanted to kind of make it smooth. And then I used my heat gun to heat up any glue residue and just scrape that right off. So now I've got a totally smooth surface. I can just paint, and I chose to do mine with white chalk paint. Now these are some seed packet files that I bought off Etsy. I'll link those below down in my description box. I just decided to enlarge them using my Canva app to be big enough to put on here. But use your imagination on this. I mean, you could print out a bunch of little ones and do a collage all over this. You could do a rub-on transfer. Calendar pages are perfect for this, printing on tissue paper. There's so many fun possibilities to do this with. Now I'm running my scissor along the edge of the paper to give it a little bit of a frayed look. You can kind of see that I did just kind of rip it right there. That's going to be totally fine when we glue it back on, so don't stress if you do that. To be perfectly honest with you though, with what I end up doing, I don't think I needed to run my scissors along the edge or even this part right here where I'm painting or kind of using a distressing ink to kind of not have that paper show through, and I'll show you why. But if you don't do the step that I show you in a minute, do that to kind of disguise that it's paper. You want it to look like it's like a vintage thing out of a magazine or something that you found that you've made this little planter or vase or whatever it is out of. So I'm just using some Elmer's school glue here. I love this stuff. I use it the majority of the time in my projects that I'm doing like this instead of Mod Podge. I like to use Mod Podge more on the top for protection rather than using it for the actual surface, like to glue it onto. So if I can get away using Elmer's glue, I definitely do that because I love the bond it gives is great, and I really do like it. So I'm just doing my best to get it all laid out and even. I'm going to use my brayer here to go back and forth to get a really good bond and help get that all adhered. Now the back side of this, I'm putting the other design on so that way it's got two different sides to it that you could display. That way if you're walking around wherever you have this put out, it's going to have something nice to look at on either side of it. So I'm just doing this as like a little something, a little canister to put some flowers in. I have some little fake flowers that I put in here, and this is so fun. It just reminded me of like spring or summertime, especially like when you're out in the garden working, and maybe you're just like sitting out on the porch that you have a cute bouquet of fresh cut flowers or something, or even just on your kitchen table. I really love how this turns out. Now here I'm just taking some apple barrel burnt umber paint, and I'm going around the tin rim on the top and then also along the base. I wanted it to mimic rust, which this color really does a great job on its own of doing rust. So you don't really have to add anything else to it to give it more of that rust touch. But as I was doing it, I thought I would go around the border of the little graphics that I glued on there. So this would be totally optional. And this is why I decided that distressing ink or even doing the scissors along the edge of the paper, this kind of disguised both of those. So it was kind of an unnecessary step. So if you don't like the way this looks and how it kind of pops behind that graphic, then definitely do a little bit of something to disguise that it's paper, like with the distressing ink like I showed. Now I'm just putting a little bit of antiquing wax on a paper towel, and I sprayed it with some water because it was very stark white after I kind of outlined that burnt umber around each of the graphics. And I do want this to look like it's something that maybe you've had on your potting bench or something that you use to put your fresh flowers in. Maybe you store your garden tools in it. And I'll even press down like it's a stamp and kind of press some texture onto it as well. So if that's not your thing, definitely don't worry about that. Just kind of keep it as bright as you can. I even take some really watered down burnt umber and just on a brush with some stiff bristles, I'm just kind of splattering it all over the design, kind of like some dirt had gotten wet over the years all over it, and it just looks like it sat around for a long time. So here's where I protect it with the Mod Podge, just a little bit on the front and just brush that all over. But look at how beautiful this turns out. Just with any kind of flowers in here. It's not really, where it's kind of cardboardy, you definitely wouldn't want to put water or put real flowers in here unless you stuck like a vase down inside of it. But both of these designs I think are super cute, and how fun to just get some inexpensive flowers and throw in there. Thank you for taking the time to watch this compilation mega video. If you have made it this far, I would love if you would consider hitting that subscribe button and becoming a member of our crafting community. If you did like any of today's projects, remember to hit that thumbs up. But again, have such a wonderful day and happy crafting. If you liked the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.